One of the features of many churches here in East Anglia is the beautiful angel ceilings, where angels are depicted up in the roof of the church. Sometimes they were painted, sometimes they were gilded, sometimes they were left just plain. Blythburgh is a particularly fine example of one of these angel churches. So much so that the village sign, which stands just over there, has one of these angels on it. Blythburgh is noted also for the tragedy that occurred during the Second World War when Joe Kennedy, the brother of John Kennedy, the United States President, was killed in an accident while on a bombing mission. Let's go inside and have a look at the church. Blythburgh Parish Church has a history that goes right back to the very beginnings of Christianity here in East Anglia. The earliest record we have of it concerns King Anna, the first Christian king of this area, who was killed in battle with Penda, king of Mercia, the great pagan champion, just on the other side of the river over there. And according to the records, his body was brought here to lie in the church. Not this church, of course, because this particular building was built during the medieval period, the Middle Ages, when there was tremendous rivalry for each village to build and own the greatest and most splendid church. And it is from this medieval period too that the wonderful angel roof dates, where a whole choir of angels are depicted, praising God, joining in the praises of heaven, but also looking down upon the worshippers beneath. There are only a few angels left now, but when William Dowsing, the Puritan iconoclast, came here, he ordered the destruction of over 200 angels. And many more were destroyed by falling from the roof or by actual being crushed when a part of the church collapsed in the centuries of neglect that followed. But the angels in Blythburgh are not just praising God in heaven, they're also looking down on events on earth. And this is something that people in the medieval period felt very deeply, that they were constantly surrounded by a host of God's angels, watching and recording everything that they did. And Christians still believe that God's angels keep an infallible and a detailed record of not only our actions, but also our motives. And maybe that's the reason why here on the church pews are depicted some of the deadly sins that afflict people on earth. Here is avarice, a woman sitting on a money chest. Next one along is hypocrisy, a man kneeling at prayer but with his eyes open so that he can watch what others are getting up to. Here is gluttony, a man with a distended belly. And here is pride, a man in fine, fancy dress. In another one of these bench ends, you have slander, a grotesque figure with a forked tongue. God's angels see everything that goes on. It's interesting that there was some research done that showed that the countries which were most prosperous and best governed were those that had a very lively fear of hell. The great curse of the Third World is bribery and corruption. And officials are corrupt because they think that they can get away with it, that no one sees what they do. Whereas in those countries where people believe that God sees and God watches, there is not the same degree of corruption, of wickedness that you have in other places. This is perhaps the greatest legacy of Christianity, one which is unfortunately fast disappearing, as we can see in just about any street in Britain, where remotely controlled closed-circuit television cameras take the place of the angels of God, watching to see that men and women don't get up to criminal acts. Well, I know which I'd rather be watched by. A gum-chewing, spotty teenager who doesn't care whether I live or die, or one of the angels of God watching over me, not as an enemy recording my mistakes, but as a friend, guiding, guarding, and caring for me. And that perhaps is the lesson of Blythburgh Church.